WTMJ. We will dig a little more into the numbers, some of the rotational changes that we've seen from Doc Rivers, and take your thoughts on the first win in over 2 weeks for the Bucs. So you can find Bucs Talk on that flagship 620 WTMJ as soon as we sign off here on the BMO Bucs Radio Network. For the rest of you, tomorrow night is when we reconvene. Bucs head to Madison Square Garden to take on the Knicks. For Dave Kane calling the action here inside of Fiserv Forum, our statistician Tom Hecker, our engineer Ryan Elliott, and our team back at the BMO Bucs Radio Network studios, engineer Jason Gordon and our producer Matt Yazel. I'm Justin Garcia signing off, reminding you we will talk once again tomorrow night with more Bucs basketball right back here on the BMO Bucs Radio Network.
This BMO Bucs Radio Network broadcast was sponsored by BMO, Go Right Way, Valley Sports Wisconsin, Sargento Cheese, The Freighter, and the Medical College of Wisconsin Health Network.
Giannis working on Orlando Robinson, spins around him, and goodness gracious, takes it all out on that rim, one-hand slam.
Uline, Potawatomi Casino Hotel, Cousin Subs, and Michelob Ultra. You've been listening to Bucs Basketball on the home of the Bucs, WTMJ. Now that the game is done, it's our time to check in.
Here's Jackson, lobbing to Giannis on the other side, and he punches it through on a beautiful alley-oop Ajax to the free. And Giannis finishes with the best.
Bucs Talk starts now.
That 6-game streak is gone. The Bucs hoping to turn the corner.
And now, live from Fiserv Forum, here's Justin Garcia and Brandon Snide.
Well, a losing streak comes to an end. It had been nearly 2 weeks, more than 2 weeks, since the Bucs won a game. We no longer have to worry about that. We no longer have to worry about the Bucs finishing 1-81 on the season. And now, as I mentioned elsewhere yesterday, you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself, the old one game at a time adage. But just to stress how early it is in the season and how we can't jump to these broad conclusions over it's over, got to blow up the team. If you win tomorrow night, and I know you're still 48 minutes away from that, if you win tomorrow night, you're a half game back in the New York Knicks, despite the fact that the sky is falling and this team is done.
Yeah. When you felt it couldn't get any worse, and here you are at 3-6. Back-to-back wins. I agree with you. And again, you and I have talked about it at length. The schedule to start this season has been horrendous for the Bucs. It's going to be even tougher tomorrow night.
Well, it's been bad. What's been horrendous is losing to the Bulls.
Sure.
The walking
Nets.
Wounded of the Memphis Grizzlies and the Brooklyn Nets. Like, you did yourself no favors there. That we assumed, hey, it's tough. I think I said, 6-4 was the level setting of maybe they're going to be 6-4, maybe 5-5. So those losses certainly hurt you, and for a brief period of a week or so, hey, the loss to the Bulls isn't as bad as we thought it was. I mean, it's still a bad loss.
Yeah,
but
they almost pulled it off tonight against
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
I mean, the Bulls have at least not looked lifeless, but still knowing that's the schedule that you have, that it's road heavy in the first 10 games, that you have 2 games with the Celtics, that you have the Knicks, who've still yet to find it. I'm sure we'll get into that conversation. All these teams, 2 with the Cavaliers, who you knew were going to be good. I don't know if any of us saw 9-0 coming. That's the tough part is, look, you can't mess around. As the phrase goes, the Bucs effed around and found out with those games. So that's the spot that you put yourself in. But you saw pretty good play for the most part against the Boston Celtics. You saw good games against the Cleveland Cavaliers. The only remaining unbeaten team in the league, you lost 2 games to them by 3 points total. And you did carry it over. So maybe it wasn't 48 minutes in each of those 3 games, those 2 Cavs games and tonight, but it's 3 straight pretty good games that the Bucs have played.
Absolutely. Would not disagree with you at all. And, 3 points, in two losses to the Cavs, a combined 3 points. I thought those 2 games were, and you and I talked about it too, Justin, like it's tough to take a moral victory when you're 1-5 and then 1-6. But they were both games at the end of the game where the Bucs had an opportunity to win the game. Damian Lillard put them up 3 late on that Monday night game, but of course couldn't hold on to it. So it was encouraging to see. And I gotta open the show with tooting my own horn a little bit. Is that allowed this early in the show?
Toot away.
I have been calling for A.J. Green and Andre Jackson Jr. since you and I think, started maybe game 1 or game 2, one of the two. Have I not?
I mean, look, yes, but you're not like the lone voice in the
I didn't
woods.
say I was the lone voice. But I told you on Saturday, was it Saturday, where they lost to the Cavs, that I would take Gary Trent Jr. out of the starting lineup. And I said insert A.J. Green. Obviously that didn't happen, but Andre Jackson Jr. goes in there, and credit to head coach Doc Rivers for doing that. And I know now we know that he's dealing with some back spasms, so maybe that wouldn't have happened. But now I don't know if you can go back.
I think it would have happened, but Doc himself said it's not going to last. That he knows Gary Trent Jr. is going to break out of this shooting slump that he's in. He views moving to the bench as a way to kind of take the pressure off of him. Mm-hmm. And I think the big piece, too, is just get going organically as the scorer coming off the bench with that second unit. And it also gives the starters a bit of a chance to kind of breathe a little bit, as he kind of joked after the game, like, can I have one guy in the starting lineup that isn't looking to score the ball, and that's going to be Ajax. I think the real question is what happens when Chris Middleton returns. Like, do you go with Chris Middleton and Ajax? Do you go with Chris Middleton and Gary Trent Jr.? But we don't know when that's going to be, so we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But, to that point, it's hard to not love everything you saw from Andre Jackson this evening. I mean, I thought the energy the Bucks came out and played this game with to start was incredible. You hit a bit of a lull when we got to the second quarter, and I know, and look, Doc has been very candid about this too. They haven't found the right mix with their bench and with those units, and I think that's also part of why they made this change of maybe Gary Trent Jr. being a piece of that will help kind of kickstart that second unit. You didn't really get to see that tonight because of the back spasms, but whenever he was on the floor and whenever he and Giannis and Damian Lillard were on the floor together, I think you really saw that impact because Andre gave you a point-of-attack defender, and he did a tremendous job on multiple occasions against multiple players, against Jordan Clarkson at times, Colin Sexton quite a bit in that first half, a couple of times when he got matched up through switches onto Lauri Markkanen, and he more than held his own. He was terrific tonight, but those plays kick-started the Bucks' transition offense. And when you have Giannis and Dame, that's a lethal combination. And, we've heard Doc saying, like, we want to get out and run because of this. Their half-court offense, I think, has been good enough so far this season.
It has, yeah.
But their transition offense, when they get into those opportunities, has been absolutely lethal. You don't expect to get that volume that you got tonight, every single game. But this was like the perfect hang it in the LaVore. Like, this is what we want to see.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, you look at the starting five. All of their plus-minus, Justin, the lowest one is plus 19. Both of them, Andre Jackson Jr. plus 19, Brook Lopez plus 19, Dame plus 27, Giannis plus 27, and Prince plus 23. I mean, that was outside of that lull that you mentioned. I think it was in that second quarter, out of the gate of the third quarter. I mean, it was a completely different game. It was, you could tell the adjustments that the Bucks made, and it just felt like a little bit of relief off their shoulders once they got into that double-digit lead. It felt like, okay, we know what we're capable of. We have the star power, we have the coaching, we have the role players, and I think for the first time, really since maybe early parts of that Bulls game, you were watching a confident basketball team. You were watching a team knock down shots, get second chance opportunities, and I'll tell you this too. My favorite lineup. Can you guess? Well, maybe we'll wait for the next break. But I want you to think about what you think my favorite lineup was tonight. What pieces were my favorite part tonight? I don't know off the top of my head what their efficiency was or what they scored versus what they didn't. Obviously, by now I'm a huge A.J. Green fan. So there's your hint. It includes A.J. Green. I just think him and Andre, man, I give a lot of credit to Doc Rivers for noticing the spark that those two guys have brought off the bench. And I think it just changes the way this team plays. It changes the way they defend. It changes the way they defend the transition. I mean, there was one play where I think it was Colin Sexton slid off, and Andre Jackson Jr. chased him down and completely nullified a fast break opportunity. The Jazz ended up turning the ball over. I mean, those two do the little things that, again, like you mentioned before, not necessarily that Giannis or Dame don't, and eventually when Chris comes in, but those two are willing to take a very, very, very backseat to scoring. You want A.J. Green to shoot the ball, but, I mean, he doesn't mind doing those little things, and you and I talked about it when they lost to the Cavs earlier this week. They just do everything right. Like, when you're watching them, they're not going to be the biggest. They're not going to be the fastest. Andre Jackson Jr. had 4 fouls tonight. You would like him to clean that up a little bit, But other than that, man, when you're watching them, you're like, that's what I wanted. That's what I want my team to look like when they're defending or when they're off ball or when they have the ball in their hands.
855-616-1620. That's the number to join us tonight on Bucks Talk. 855-616-1620. We'll hear from you. Get your thoughts on this win. The losing streak is over. 2 weeks in the making. The Bucks finally back in the win column. We'll hear what that lineup was that Brandon is referring to. I can't say favorite because we haven't seen it yet, but I was wondering if we would see one particular lineup. And there was one moment, I think, in the third quarter where I thought it was going to happen, and then it didn't. There was one player absent from that 5-man grouping. So
I wonder if we have the same one.
Well, this group didn't play together.
But mine didn't necessarily all play together. It was 4 out of 5.
Well, that's not a lineup.
It's close enough. I don't know if we'll get to the 5 out of 5.
855-616-1620. More after this on Bucks Talk.
If you're concerned about heart health, remember that you are not powerless. At the Freighter and the Medical College of Wisconsin Health Network, we're pushing to outsmart heart and vascular disease by helping to assess your risks and guide you to heart strength. By providing breakthrough research and renowned expertise for treating common conditions and the most serious. Let's stay out in front of heart and vascular disease and embrace every day life has to offer. Learn more at freighter.com/heart.
Visit family-owned Ken Michaels Furniture and our in-store design centers where you'll still find beautiful, luxurious, heirloom-quality American-made furniture. Right now, save 30 to 35% store-wide and take advantage of our complimentary design services. Whether you're moving, renovating, or updating, our designers will help your vision become a reality. Visit Ken Michaels Furniture in Brookfield on Capitol Drive and in Greenfield on Highway 100 to save 30 to 35% store-wide today. Sleep better and save more with mattresses from Milwaukee Mattress and Ken Michaels Furniture. Handcrafted in our Milwaukee factory, our mattresses utilize natural materials like cotton cushioning, which dissipates body heat, Joma wool quilts for warm wintry nights and cool summer evenings, and natural latex providing superior conformability and pressure relief for aching joints. Stop in today at any Ken Michaels Furniture store and save up to 50% compared to national brands.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues?
Who are you?
Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
This is a story of the one. As a maintenance specialist for university housing, he knows college students can major in wear and tear. Plus, housing so many students doesn't leave a lot of room to house all the supplies he needs. That's where Grainger comes in. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast, dependable delivery, Grainger carries the quality products he needs so he doesn't have to. From a new door hinge to a whole new faucet. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Welcome back to Bucks Talk.
$123-100, our final score here inside of Fiserv Forum. Bucks end the 6-game losing streak and take care of business against the Utah Jazz. It looked dire at times, especially in those first 24 minutes, really in the second quarter, when you loved what you saw in the first quarter, save for the last minute when it felt like, man, Bucks are cruising along here, and then you look up and it's a 2-point lead, but down by 4 at halftime.
Yep.
I mean, there were some outliers to point to of, well, you're down by 4 on a night where the Jazz had 14 threes.
Oh my goodness.
And we're shooting better than 50% on threes. So I feel like that lead should be larger than 4. But the bigger problem is, here we go again with another team hitting the high volume of threes. To their credit, part of this was the Jazz just cooled off because they did have some good looks that did not go down in that second half. But Bucks did look very good defensively and connected to a lot of those shots. And you got the result that you hoped for. You know, the process has been good for 3 games, and now the results are there. 855-616-1620, the number to join us tonight on Bucks Talk. Let's head to the phone lines and check in with Q in Milwaukee. You're up first.
Justin, so I was pretty young when the Berlin Wall fell. Were you, old enough to remember that?
Old enough to remember that.
I was definitely too young for that.
I mean, I remember it. I don't vividly remember it.
I guess this is it feels like the Berlin Wall fell for this team today. I'm very excited. I feel like we can go on the East and the West and have some victories here. I'm very excited to play the Knicks and the Celtics this weekend. I hope we're not playing with fool's gold, but it feels like we've been kind of building towards something. And I don't know. I feel like we're going to surprise some folks tomorrow night. And like you said, we're only a half game behind the Knicks if we get that win. One question for you. Was this a good Bobby Portis game?
It was a Bobby Portis game. You know, I think he's still trying to find his fit within this team, I think, is the best way that you can put it. I mean, I know Bobby's been a part of this team for 5 years, right? I think one of the challenges that Bobby is going through is it's a different team now. What you need from that spot is different. So you can't ask Bobby Portis to be something that he's not, but it was a lot easier for Bobby Portis to find those opportunities and really relish and excel in this role in the previous iteration of this team when you had Drew Holiday and the Bucks were a defensive team. I know you had Giannis, and we think about the offense of this group, but they made their mark defensively. And Bobby Portis got to be the guy that was basically your offensive punch off the bench. Or if Giannis missed a game, Bobby came in and scored. This is an offensive team. The identity shifted to offense. And you may think, well, perfect, that suits Bobby Portis well. But what you need from Bobby Portis' role is basically what Andre Jackson Jr. is giving the team. You need somebody that's going to go in there, move the ball, play defense, give you switchability, and just take advantage of the opportunity. So I think that's kind of been the challenge, that we've seen some inconsistencies in tough games from Bobby. I liked a lot of what you saw. I think he had better moments in tonight's game, and I think that's part of the process of really finding his footing with this specific group, because I think Bobby would be the first to tell you, too. He had some rough performances early in the season, but it's slowly getting there. I mean, you can point to the stat line he had in that loss to the Cavs game. There are still some moments that I'm sure Bobby would tell you, yeah, I'd like to get that one back. So I think we're at least moving on that path with Bobby Portis, or on that track, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and that's great to hear. And I'm encouraged by the moves that Doc is making. Maybe putting Ajax in the starting lineup was maybe he had to because of the back spasms, but I just think Doc's willingness to even play second and third year players is pretty cool. Last question for you, and I'll hang up. Do the Knicks have any Giannis stoppers on the roster? Can Cat stop him? I can't remember how.
There isn't a Giannis stopper in the league.
Well, I mean, OG Anunoby, Walker Kessler defended him very well tonight.
He had 27 points in 31 minutes. There's not a Giannis stopper in the league.
Walker Kessler did a terrific job.
He may have, but he's not a stopper
tonight. Fine.
He's going to have moments.
To his point, OG Anunoby is who's going to get matched up on Giannis, and Kat you're going to have come over as the helper. I'm more curious to see who the Bucks put Giannis on, because it seems like with the Knicks, when you look at that personnel group, I would assume it's going to be OG Anunoby that you put Giannis on, thinking, OG Anunoby's a defensive guy, so you can put Giannis on him, sit in the corner, and come over as the helper. and Brooke Lopez in that scenario would take Karl Anthony Towns. Maybe you put him on Josh Hart just to use him as your weak side help coming over. But, yeah, OG Anunoby's the guy that's going to get those matchups on him, and then Karl Anthony Towns is going to be the helper. But the thing about the Knicks is, there's not a lot of depth. They've basically been playing 8 deep. They've been circumventing the salary cap best they can, where you're allowed, I think it's 12 days in the regular season to start the season before you have to carry the minimum amount of players in 14, because all those moves the Knicks made in the offseason have put them not in as bad of a spot as the Bucks in terms of the cap and the second apron, but not an advantageous spot to be in. So they've kind of taken their time to add some more salary. But, point being, Tyler Kolek's playing 10 minutes a night for the Knicks as their 8th man. It's basically Tyler Kolek, Miles McBride, and Jericho Sims is their backup big. So there's not a whole lot of depth there. They did just add Matt Ryan. But that's going to be the big hope. Is a big advantage for the Bucks tomorrow is if you can get OG Anunoby or Karl Anthony Towns in foul trouble, they don't have a whole lot of other options to throw out there.
I'd like to see him utilize Brooke a little bit more in that scenario tomorrow then. It didn't seem there wasn't no concerted effort tonight with him on the offensive side of the ball, which, again, I don't have any complaints, but I think he finished with, 1 point?
Well, I mean, you were complaining about him 2 weeks ago.
Well, of course, and who wasn't?
Me. A lot of people.
But because you got the Bucks blinders on. You got to open them up a little bit sometimes. He takes bad timed shots. I don't think anybody that watches a Bucks game is going to disagree with that. In those moments, in those games. Tonight he was fine. But he had 1 point. But I'm saying I would like to see him, to go to your point. What are you shaking your head at?
Okay, continue.
Well, go ahead. Well,
no, continue.
You talking about getting those guys in foul trouble, I would like to see them work a little bit more Brooke Lopez in that case, because I would imagine if OG's on Giannis, then you're going to get Cat on Brooke.
I take it back. I bet Brooke is – I wonder if you put Brooke on Josh Hart. Because, that was one – and I know the last game he played in, he scored 14 points and hit 6 shots. But that was the big thing to me in that Cat trade. A couple of things, I guess. I'm sure if it were at all possible, the Knicks would have rather included Josh Hart than Dante DiVincenzo in that trade. In some ways, there's similarities to Ajax, where he can hit open threes, but we saw in the playoffs, teams were just leaving him open to shoot. Josh Hart, that is. He gives you a lot of defensive versatility, but the offense isn't the strong suit. So I wonder if maybe that's the approach. If we put Brooke on Josh Hart, and we know Josh Hart's going to sit in the corner, and Giannis takes Cat, or Giannis takes OG Anunoby, and you figure out what the rest of the matchups are. But, yeah, depth is going to be the interesting piece in tomorrow's game against the Knicks. 855-616-1620, the number to join us tonight on Bucks Talk. We have to get to our lineups. We will do that. And some additional thoughts on this matchup with the Knicks. We'll get into that after this on Bucks Talk.
Hey, this is Steve Scafidi for Advent. I had some snoring issues that kept my wife up at night. That led to poor sleep and a lot of tired mornings on the radio, and nobody wants that, trust me. But it's simply my nose wasn't working the way it should. I decided to go to Advent for a quick 30-minute visit, one of their great facilities, talk to a bunch of their doctors. They really put me at ease. After a really simple sleep study at home in my own bed, they determined the root cause of my problem had to do with my sinuses and nasal passages in my breathing triangle. I didn't even know I had a breathing triangle, so I went to see Advent. After a short procedure done in office, I'm back to breathing well, and my wife and I are both back to sleeping through the whole night. The best sleep we've ever had, that could be you. If you struggle with restless nights like I did, take the time to see how Advent can help. To find out how breathing well and sleeping well can make your life and your nights a whole lot better, go to AdventKnows.com, schedule an appointment today. Because Advent knows, when you breathe well, you live better.
Welcome back to Ask Hassleus.
If you could spend 1 month anywhere, where would you go?
Easy. I'd go to bed.
I mean, anywhere in the world.
Precisely.
You'd spend the entire month in bed?
Specifically, a new Tempur-Pedic from Hassleus Mattress.
Why?
Because I can take 60 months to pay for it. Through Monday, get 60 months interest-free financing on select Tempur-Pedic mattresses plus a $300 MasterCard gift card.
60 months. That means...
You can buy a Queen Tempur-Pedic Pro Adapt Hybrid with ease adjustable base for just $74 a month.
And I get a $300 MasterCard gift card.
Free next-day delivery and employee-free showrooms, too.
So I can try and buy...
With no pushy sales guy.
Hang on.
What are you doing?
Searching for a travel agent to book a month-long vacation at Hassellus Mattress.
Enjoy 60 months interest-free financing on select Tempur-Pedics through Monday at Hassellus Mattress. Open 9 to 9. Find an employee-free showroom near you or shop online at hassellus.com.
There's still time to save big money on your roofing project at Menards. We have an unbeatable selection of Atlas architectural shingles. Castlebrook, Briarwood, and Pinnacle all feature a limited lifetime warranty and up to 130 miles per hour wind warranty. Choose from 20 styles in stock, ready to take home today. Stop in to shop our wide selection of roofing products or visit Menards.com for more great deals happening now.
Save big money at Menards.
The Roundball Repartee returns. This is Bucks Talk.
123-100, the final score here. Bucks snap the 6-game losing streak and improved to 2-6 on the season by my math. They are now 13th in the East, so we're making progress. Justin Garcia joined by Brandon Snide. This is Bucks Talk. Brandon, you mentioned your favorite lineup, but so this wasn't the actual 5-man grouping. You saw 4 of the 5?
The 4 out of the 5 are probably what makes it. The 5th can be, there's a few other options. One of them's not playing. But he's not. He's injured. But if you could take a guess, let's have some fun with it. Take a guess.
Your favorite?
My favorite, and they were on the court tonight.
Oh, boy.
I know I'm putting you on the spot, but
Brooke Lopez, Bobby Portis, Pat Connaughton.
You could end at Brooke Lopez. It was not with him on the court.
So Giannis and Dame.
Yep.
Andre Jackson Jr.
Correct.
Taurean Prince.
Nope.
AJ Green.
AJ Green.
And then who's
the other one was Bobby Portis. So Andre, AJ, Damian Lillard, and Giannis. Those are the 4 that I just mentioned that like you could intertwine a couple different players in that other spot. Eventually, it would be fun to see Chris Middleton in that lineup. It's a little bit smaller of a lineup, but man.
So there was a moment, I think, in the 3rd quarter, I want to say, where the Bucks had most of these guys on the floor, and then they had 3 of the 5 on the floor, and then 2 were checking in. We're at the scorer's table to check in, and I thought, man, we're going to see this. And I remember talking to Dave during our break of, I don't think we've seen this lineup yet, and I'm really intrigued by this, and looked it up. We had not seen them play, the Bucks play with this 5-man grouping yet. Like, all right, I'm curious to see how this looks. And then at the last moment, Brooke Lopez came back to the scorer's table and came onto the floor, so we didn't see this. But that 5-man grouping that I'm referring to, that I am very curious if we see, I don't know about tomorrow, but Boston could make some sense to see this, is Giannis as your 5, Taurean Prince at the 4, and then Dame, A.J. Green, and Andre Jackson Jr. on the floor together, because it gives you basically a lot of switchability.
Absolutely.
3+ defenders, 1 better than average defender, and then you have Damian Lillard. But there's enough to offset anything in terms of weaknesses that the Celtics and other teams would do to say, okay, well, we got to get Dame in those actions, and we'll attack him in pick and rolls. The second quarter was a problem for the Bucks in this game tonight. Jazz scored 32 points. It's where they closed the first quarter strong and ended up taking a 4-point lead in the halftime. Doc has said this a couple of times, that they're still searching for the right mix off the bench and searching for lineups. You know, you mentioned Chris Middleton, and, I mean, that's another part of, you know, I'm really interested to see when this team does get healthy, lineups that would include, like, Giannis at the 5, Taurean Prince, Chris Middleton, Damian Lillard, and either A.J. Green or Andre Jackson Jr. Like, I'm still curious, as much as we love Andre and what he's brought to this team with the energy, you certainly saw it tonight. I'm not going to say I am skeptical. I'm just curious to see what the impact is offensively when you go up against a Celtics type of defense where they can find the weakness and expose it and say, look, we think this is a problem, that you're going to have two non-shooters in Giannis and Andre Jackson Jr. on the floor at the same time. Andre, tonight, did a good job of involving his teammates, utilizing the dunker spot. That's something he's done for the last few games. But when you're playing against a team like Boston that has a very good team defense and a bevy of individual defenders that are very good and that can take advantage of those matchups, that's where I need to see this and see, okay, what's your counterpunch when that happens. But getting back to that second quarter, the bench units were part of the problem. And there was a couple of lineups that they played in this game tonight that were really problematic for them. And, you know, I don't want to say, well, what other options do you have? There aren't many as of this moment, especially knowing Gary Trent Jr., what he was dealing with and Doc's hesitance to go back to him because of those back spasms. Oddly enough, nobody asked about DeLon Wright in postgame. He did not play tonight, and he played, I think, 4 minutes in that game against the Cavs. I know Doc Rivers basically insinuated he wasn't 100% or he was still dealing with something and on a minutes restriction about a week ago, but 4 minutes total in the last 2 games, I wouldn't really call that a minutes restriction. So that's one of the more peculiar things to come out of this week, too, is, boy, what's happened in the minutes for DeLon Wright? Because I bring that up because I thought one of the lineups that was the biggest problem for the Bucks we saw in the second quarter. And to Doc's credit, he didn't go back to it, but we saw portions of it in the second half. And that was, I can't remember offhand who all 5 were, but it was basically, the gist of it was Pat Connaughton was your point guard. Bobby Portis and Brook Lopez were playing together. So it's like, you got to pick your poison here. Are you going to try to outscore the team, or are you going to try to defend them? And the groupings that they put out there, I think A.J. Green might have been in one of those, or Gary Trent Jr. It was Pat Connaughton, Gary Trent Jr., A.J. Green, and then Brook and Bobby. So you didn't have great perimeter defenders. You didn't have a lot of switchability in that unit. And you didn't really have an organizer or a point guard, so I thought your offense suffered and your defense just couldn't keep up and match what we saw in the first half. That's the spot that you're in, though, until you get Chris Middleton back on the floor, and until we know what's going on with DeLon Wright and if he's going to be a part of this group in those minutes going forward.
Well, I think he's slowly being phased down the line, because now I don't think if you're Doc Rivers.
Well, I don't know if he's being phased.
No, I mean, phases, yeah, but I mean, it's going to be tougher for him to get minutes if Andre Jackson Jr. and A.J. Green continue to.
Yeah, but he doesn't play that same spot. Like he's
correct.
You need. I think what's become very evident, you need a point guard, and I know Pat Connaughton kind of took on that role last year. Oddly enough, against the Jazz is basically when it started, when the Bucks played without a traditional point guard in that game. Dame was out, and that was back in the campaign days. Campaign was out as well. So Pat Connaughton was your point guard. And we saw moments of that last year where he was basically the guy of, like, well, we don't got anybody else. Pat, you're going to have to be the backup point guard tonight. And, to his credit, he has grown his game. But there's a big difference from Pat Connaughton doing that to even DeLon Wright, to a guy that is a traditional organizer, point guard type to set up the offense, and just ball handlers and offensive initiators and shot creators is what this team sorely lacks. It's Damian Lillard, basically. Chris Middleton as well. Mm-hmm. So that's what really stood out to me of, man, you still need somebody to really run that second unit.
Make the call.
And
920, is it 920? What's the area code in Oshkosh?
For who?
A.J. Johnson.
No. Doc has even said he's going to play in the G League this year. He needs to learn how to be a point guard.
It was Summer League, but I saw more out of A.J. Johnson than
Summer League.
Okay. It's still more than what I've seen out of DeLon Wright in these first 2 weeks.
Name 4 guys he played against in Summer League.
It doesn't matter.
Yes, it does. It's a different level of competition.
It's a different level of competition, but he has a different type of speed that we don't have.
That's great, but you still have to harness some of those things and learn.
And the same things that you're saying now are the same things everybody said last year about Andre Jackson Jr. and about A.J. Green.
Close.
The same things.
It is
we
not,
can't play him because
Brandon. It is not even close. You're talking about a kid that played sparse minutes
and what is
in the NBL.
All respect
versus Andre Jackson Jr., who played for the national champion UConn Huskies with a storied collegiate background. But it is not even close.
Tell me what he's gaining out of Oshkosh. Give me the example that we had. Man, we sent this player X to Oshkosh, and he turned out to be amazing. He turned out to be so much more improved. What has come out of Oshkosh?
What has come out of the G League?
The Herd, Oshkosh, wherever.
The G League in general.
I'm
Chris
talking
Middleton. Are you familiar with it?
First off, that's a different team and different organization and a different league. I'm talking about.
It's not a different.
I'm talking
league.
about the
it's
one that
the
we are affiliated with right now. I'm not talking about 15 years ago.
What guys have you had? Dante DiVincenzo you put down there in Oshkosh.
But he didn't stay down there a whole year. He did not stay down there a whole year.
Dante DiVincenzo wasn't a 19-year-old that had limited experience.
I just think that we're being a little naive when we say he's a kid and he needs to develop and learn how to play. I would rather have him up here right now learning how to play in the 4 minutes that Tyler Smith and the end of the bench got tonight. I would rather him be getting those minutes up here with Doc Rivers, up here with the coaching staff.
He's not
up here with Damian Lillard,
minutes.
up here with Giannis.
He's not going to get those minutes. You need him to play, right? He needs to play.
He needs to play, but I still think
he's not going to play at this level.
I think he can play. I think he can.
Look at all the guys that are in front of him.
Well, you're talking about needing a second point guard, a ball handler. When he in summer league he didn't shoot well, but he got to the rim with ease.
In the preseason, he didn't shoot well either.
But he didn't need to though, necessarily.
Yes, he does because.
So then what is DeLon Wright shooting right now? Because if we're talking about putting DeLon Wright,
you can't put if he's not going to shoot. And your ideal lineup of we got to have Giannis and AJ out there and Andre Jackson. You can't load the floor with non-shooters. Like, I'm not trying to say he doesn't have a bright future, but he needs to develop. And you don't develop by playing sparsely in regular season games. He needs to play consistently. That's what he's going to get to do with the Wisconsin Herd. I get your, just play him up here, fine. There's too many guys that are in front of him. And we've even heard Doc say after tonight's game, Giannis and Dame, they're not going to not play in back-to-back. So it's not like, well, we got a back-to-back tomorrow, we got to watch their minutes, and they're not going to play. That's not the case. Partially because of where they are, partially because they're going to be pushed. There's just so many guys in front. The conversation we had about A.J. Green and Ajax needing to play more, it always came down to what are the roadblocks and obstacles in front of them. The guys that are veterans that are already going to get those minutes, those guys have surpassed. But you're just asking for another, this guy needs to play too, and this guy needs to play too.
I'm at the point where, with all due respect to both of them, I would rather see him in front of Pat Connaughton handling the ball and DeLon Wright.
But you're not going.
Why though? Why? That's my question to you. Why am I not going to?
For all the reasons, he's 19 years old. He has limited experience. Doc Rivers basically told us this 5 days ago. He's going to play in Oshkosh because he needs to learn how to be a point guard. I'm going to work with him exclusively.
You know what makes this show great? The best Bucks post-game show on the airwaves? We're just never going to agree on much. Because I would rather play him. And I would rather take my lumps, the same lumps I told you I would take with Andre Jackson Jr., and I know he's a year ahead of...
he is light years ahead of him. It's not just a year ahead.
But they're, different positions, different roles.
He played for Bobby Hurley.
I know.
He played many years at UConn. He played in big moments for UConn.
He's a champion. I get all that. But he's not also – they're playing different positions. What I need out of A.J. Johnson isn't –
Jr. was a point guard at UConn.
Right, but he doesn't run the point here.
Andre Jackson Jr. is basically the guy, to your point, when you say you need facilitators. Is he a shot creator? No. But that's the guy that I think when push comes to shove, we don't know if DeLon Wright is dealing with something. I know Doc Rivers said that it was back spasms for Gary Trent Jr., but if it's not going to be DeLon Wright, then you need to put another shooter out there, and Andre Jackson Jr. is the guy that does that. I mean, going back to the Pacers series, the only two guys that could confidently handle the ball and get up the floor with the pressure they were facing were Damian Lillard and Andre Jackson Jr. So, that's where I'm willing to meet you halfway. Like, if this is where we're at, and again, we don't know what's going on, but if DeLon Wright isn't going to be getting consistent minutes, Ajax, make him the backup point guard. Have him the guy that's facilitating. And I still kind of feel like his best usage is as a 4 in this league, but he at least has that ability to bring the ball up the floor. I mean, we saw it a couple of times tonight where not only bringing the ball up the floor, one of the things that he did where you're like, finally, somebody did that. Quickly bringing the ball up the floor. Dame needed an outlet. They were pressuring Dame on the inbounds. Ajax flashed right around midcourt, catches the ball just quickly across half court, where it's not some of the same old that we saw through the first, 4 or 5 games of, man, they're taking the full 8 seconds to get up past half court. They're working all the way down until 5 on the shot clock because of the pressure they're facing in the backcourt. It's those little things that go a long way in making your offense more efficient.
I mean, I understand your points. I 100% can't disagree with what you're saying. I look at it from a different angle. I'm looking at it through, okay, we got Pat Connaughton bringing the ball up, who's clearly lost a few steps. DeLon Wright, whatever he's dealing with, hasn't shown much in these first 2 weeks. And we got this 19-year-old kid in Oshkosh who, during preseason in the summer league, was moving the ball phenomenally, getting to the rack phenomenally. I don't understand why at times where we're just we're just going to put him off and send him off to the G League so he can learn how to play. I understand there's part of that. But, I mean, you're telling me at this point he can't get minutes over Pat Connaughton?
Yes, that is what I'm
That's what you're telling me, but we're never going to agree on that. And that's fine.
855
because I still love you.
855-616-1620. Number to join us tonight on Bucks Talk. We briefly touched on the New York Knicks. What's up next for the Bucks? We'll take a closer look at tomorrow's opponent after this on Bucks
Both
Talk.
of them work.
Call quality for the signature service you deserve.
For 60 years, we've been known as Quality Heating, offering the highest levels of HVAC expertise. But when I took over for Greg, I saw the potential to add services for all your home needs. We do heating and cooling so well, I figured, why not offer new trades to give all-around home service to our customers? So along with heating and cooling, we now offer top-flight plumbing and electric services. There's no subs here, and we all work under the quality code of taking pride in the Midwestern work ethic, and more importantly, Midwestern morals. You know, much of our trade has gone corporate with private equities, but we remain a family-owned company. This is Anthony Zanevsky with Quality, offering heating, cooling, plumbing, and electric. For the signature service you deserve, call Quality.
Call quality for the signature service you deserve.
Call Quality, now offering heating, cooling, plumbing, and electric.
Had a devastating knee injury, tore my ACL, tore my PCL, shredded my medial meniscus, and had an initial surgery. That really didn't hold. Had another follow-up surgery around 8 years later. That didn't work, and I didn't want to undergo another surgical procedure.
Enough with the surgeries. They didn't ease the pain, and recovery was brutal. Carmen heard about another treatment for pain relief, the non-invasive regenerative treatments at QC Kinetics.
I simply figured, heck, I'm going to pick up the phone and call QC Kinetics, and since I've been treated, my quality of life has dramatically gotten better, and I can't thank QC Kinetics enough.
These are the nation's leaders in regenerative medicine. QC Kinetics uses the body's own healing components to help provide relief and functionality.
10 months ago, I had difficulty walking up and down a flight of steps. Now I can do just about anything I desire. I'm back to the old me.
If you have joint pain, before you consider surgery, call QC Kinetics. The consultation is free.
Call QC Kinetics, 414-285-3474. That's 414-285-3474. 414-285-3474.
Rake in a big win this November at Potawatomi. Go head-to-head in the Cash Clash game show for your share of $300,000 in cash and prizes. Just play with your rewards card for entries. Prize drawings on Thursdays. The Cash Clash game show at Potawatomi Casino Hotel, Milwaukee. Your win is waiting. More info at paysbig.com. Must be 21 and a rewards member to play.
This is Bucks Talk.
Losing streak over for the Bucks, a 23-point win tonight over the Utah Jazz, and now off to New York to take on the Knicks, a Knicks team that is not really, look, it's early, as we just said, for the Bucks, so it would be hypocritical to say, well, look at the Knicks now. Yet to kind of find their footing with this group, and depth was a big piece for the Knicks a season ago. That depth has really been dismantled with two trades, specifically the Karl Anthony Towns trade in losing Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. But we talked about the Bucks' identity shifting and how that kind of relates to Bobby Portis. The Knicks are an offensive team. Mm-hmm. You know, like they made their bones defense under Tom Thibodeau, and now it's an offensive group with Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. I'm very curious to see this matchup tomorrow because of some of the depth for the New York Knicks, because of what we just kind of walked through. I wonder who you match up on who for both of these teams. And to also see, you know, Doc Rivers was pretty adamant a couple games ago that I feel like a run is coming. I know it's close. I can feel it with this group. It's 3 straight games that we said, Brandon. For the most part, the Bucks have played pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely.
1-2 in those 3 games. But your win is 23 points, and your 2 losses are to the best record in the league by a total of 3 points.
And you were right there against those Cavs teams earlier this weekend, last weekend, where you could have sneaked out both of those wins. And one of those games, Giannis didn't play. So it is trending in the right direction. I am curious for tomorrow's game. Looking at the Knicks team, and you'll definitely tell me if I'm wrong, but it feels like, looking at that team, Justin, they kind of mirror what the Bucks were last year, making a late trade. Yeah. I wouldn't put Cat, obviously, on the same pedestal as Damian Lillard, but they made a late trade, kind of traded away a key piece to their deep playoff run last year in Dante DiVincenzo, and I wouldn't put him on the same level as Jrue Holiday, but they're kind of looking like what the Bucks were last year. They come in with a lot of expectations, kind of that championship or bust type of mentality. And the Bucks have been playing really good basketball over the last week. The only thing I hate about this is the second leg of a back-to-back for the Bucks, which is I believe their second back-to-back already in the first 2 weeks. So I think that would be the only thing that, scares me or worries me a little bit about going in there tomorrow. But I think you mentioned it. Some of the best games that they've played this year, and certainly last year, were out that second leg of a back-to-back. One of the best games the Bucks played this year was that game against Boston, and that was the second leg of a back-to-back, and they were right there with Boston until late in that game. So I am curious to see what it looks like tomorrow. I think the Bucks match up really well, favorable against this Knicks team, and the only thing that worries me with Tibbs is he's gonna do everything he can to beat Giannis and beat the bigs down low, and I hope hopefully come out of the game okay.
855-616-1620, the number to join us tonight on Bucks Talk. So in New York tomorrow, I agree.
Did you say you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I
Where's the bell? Ring the bell, Matt.
I made the point as soon as that trade was made of, the thing about this trade is it does remind you of it was almost to the day anniversary of when the Bucks made the Damian Lillard trade, that the Knicks made that trade for Karl Anthony Towns. And it took time. It took time for the Bucks to find that footing. I mean, you can argue they're still looking for it. You look through the years of all those moves, those large, sweeping moves that you make. I mean, people can point to Jrue Holiday going to Boston. It's not the same. He was the 4th option with the Celtics.
Yeah.
He's the ultimate plug-and-play player. We saw it here with the Bucks. It's different than reshaping your identity. The Bucks reshaped their identity. They became an offensive team. The Celtics didn't reshape their identity. They already had a very good defense. The Knicks are reshaping their identity. They are an offensive team now. So it takes time, and I think that's what gave you a lot of hesitation over the Knicks even to a lesser extent the 76ers, that we've seen that bear out a little bit more. And I think Bucks fans just kind of sat back and thought, well, wait a minute. We saw what this did to us last year. We're just going to forget that and think everything is going to be fine for these teams because they're just a little bit younger than the Bucks are. So, yeah, I do agree, and I think that's a lot of what we're seeing now. And I'm very curious to see how this team matches up, but especially given the way that they have looked and how much Doc Rivers has teased and said, trust me, I can feel a run coming in. I think it is close for this team. I do want to revisit some of Doc's comments about A.J. Johnson. We'll get into that coming up next on the show here. It's Bucks Talk.
Debbie Lazaga here for Kohler Services. If you need a bath or shower remodel, turn to Kohler Services, family owned for 150 years. Kohler is your Wisconsin manufacturer providing care for life. This month only, get $1,000 off and 0 interest for 12 months on your Luckstone shower remodel. Visit KohlerServicesWI.com to request your free quote, with fast professional installation always included. That's KohlerServicesWI.com.
Spas. The Swim Spa Hot Tub and Sauna Show is this weekend only inside the Exposition Center at Wisconsin State Fair Park. Millions of inventory must be sold. Prices are slashed up to 60% off retail, so save thousands. Save big on new hot tubs, spas, and saunas, also cold tubs. Plus, see the Michael Phelps Signature Swim Spas by Master Spas.
Hi, I'm Michael Phelps. Join the swimming revolution.
The Swim Spa Hot Tub and Sauna Show this weekend only inside the Exposition Center at Wisconsin State Fair Park. Visit 1-800-SPASale.com.
After a series of meetings with the James Imaging Systems sales rep, Matheson Manufacturing chose document imaging technology from James. Matheson Manufacturing President Al Leininger.
They have a reputation out in the field. They've been around for a long, long time. I was really impressed with it.
I also understand you're impressed with the document imaging technology.
Yes, it's quicker, it's faster. We can do a lot more with the copy functions.
James Imaging Systems, better document imaging technology, better support, even lower printing costs.
Yes, definitely. I think the lease is very cost-effective for us. It certainly helps with cash flow, and it's just good.
Al, anything else you'd like to add about your experience with James Imaging Systems?
Yes, James Imaging has been a really good partner with us from the beginning.
Start your business technology partnership with James Imaging Systems today. Call 262-781-7700. James Imaging Systems, your local business technology partner.
I know you have a great dog, right? But you know there's room for improvement. At Sit Means Sit Dog Training, we can help. Our attention-based training system uses modern technology to help you better communicate with your dog, even in high distraction. When you schedule a free consultation with us, you will have the opportunity to see our training in action and meet for yourself our happy dogs off leash and under control. Contact Sit Means Sit today at 262-361-3641 or find us on the web at sitmeansitwaukesha.com to schedule your free consultation so you can have a happy, confident, and obedient dog.
Welcome back to Bucks Talk.
All right, Brandon. Doc Rivers, this was the first game against the Cavs, so less than a week ago, November 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
Asked about A.J. Johnson being...
As you should. Whoever asked that, kudos to you.
...assigned to the Wisconsin Herd and said, yeah, it's the plan. He's so young that the more he plays, the better. Playing with us, as in practices and 5-on-5, is better, and we're going to try to have him here the days where we're going through real practices and doing 5-on-5s. That'll be good for him. Seeing Dame and Giannis every day is the best teacher that you can have. The only downside is you can build bad habits. So we want him to build those good habits down there. You come here, and it's not your role, what you go through in the G League. So that's one of the things we're most cognizant of. He's going to be a point guard, and we are going to teach him to be a point guard and how to run the show. That's what his work down there is going to be.
So we're both kind of right.
No.
Because I said I'd rather him learn off of Giannis and Dame than I would. And the bad habits.
But here's the thing.
Hold on. Okay, go ahead.
You can't afford for him to learn at this level.
Fair. Especially now. Yeah.
Right, because of where you're at.
I'll give you that. But the only thing that gets me, no offense to anybody that's up in the Herd, the building bad habits?
Yeah.
I mean, do we know what the Herd are I mean, are they a good affiliate?
Like, it's the mentality.
Well, right, but
like,
I mean,
think about the you were probably leading this charge. All of the discourse I had to hear about Christian Wood and how much of a missed opportunity.
Not
and what
really.
The Bucks were,
No, I
Bucks
wasn't
were
on that
doing
one.
him wrong because I look at the monster stat lines he's putting up, and from day one, we heard from Mike Budenholzer. You got to make winning plays without scoring the basketball. Your job down there is to rebound and defend and show us you can do that. Like, it's great that you can score 40 points in a game, but you know what, buddy? We got Giannis.
That's not consistent.
We're never going to ask you to score 40 points in a game. Like, yeah, if you have your hot night, that's great, but that's not going to be your role. Giannis is the mouth that gets fed first, so you need to figure out how to play defense around him, rebound, make winning plays without scoring the bat. Like, that phrase was uttered the most under Bud, and you think about some of the players that really shined doing that. Your guy, Pat Connaughton, early in the Bud era, made winning plays without scoring the basketball. Dante DiVincenzo, that's how he separated himself from that backcourt. Like, it was routine. That's the way you stood out. Bonzie Colson, when they called him up, made some of those moments, right? That's, I think, what you're looking for from AJ. Like, look, we know the talent is in there. We know all the tools that you have. You're going to be a point guard, and he is the future point guard of this team. So we want you to learn how to run the show, and then once you get that under your belt, like, it's not to say we're never going to see him up here this year. There's going to be moments where he plays, but consistently, no, probably not. Like, we want you to get to that level, and then it's probably next year. It's like, okay, how many minutes is realistic for him to have on a nightly basis?
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with a lot of that. I think there obviously is some, me being impatient with this. But I see a guy, Justin, that we saw in the preseason and during Summer League that just kind of looked like he passed the eye test to me. And obviously there's things that go along with that maybe I'm not seeing, or obviously that we don't know about, depending on what the Bucks are looking at, and Doc Rivers in particular. But I just looked at a guy where when I watch this team, when I watch Pat Connaughton, when I watch DeLon Wright, and then I watch A.J. Johnson, they don't go together. One of them is way different than the other two. And that's where I'm coming from. I understand he has to learn. I understand he has to learn the position. But also, he's not coming in here to play 35 minutes a night.
There's a lot to like in A.J. Johnson's game. And I think there's a very, very bright future there. I think it's kind of the same that we saw with all these young guys. The same conversation that we're having of, Doc was very open about why it took us to the, 5-game mark, basically, for A.J. Green to crack the rotation and be a regular. And same thing for Ajax, and now he's back in the starting lineup. You're going to give a veteran every chance possible to win that job. And it's not just like, well, Doc only plays vets. He doesn't play rookies. And, first of all, it's just about every coach that's the case. And the reason why you do it is it's tougher to get that young guy back if you say, okay, you're the starter, you're in this role, and they come up short in the first week or so. Like, let's say you started Ajax to start the season, and he looked bad. And you have no other choice but to say, okay, we got to put Gary Trent Jr. in the starting lineup. I'm not saying this with Andre Jackson specifically, but with young players in general, it can be tough to reclaim that and build them back up after you just had this not handed to you, but you earned this spot,
right?
And then it's taken away from you. It's like, you didn't do enough to keep it. So you're going to go to the vets because it's, all right, you've kind of been there before, and you know when you have it or when you don't, and, okay, we have to make the move to this young guy. Like, that's why that's the timeline for this. So I think that's partially he's very raw.
He is.
So that's a big part of it. But I think that's the other piece, too, and especially when you brought in DeLon Wright in the offseason. Like, there was never any intention of A.J. Johnson fighting for minutes at this level because of what you had back there. A.J. Green, as he said, he struggled in camp and in the preseason because going into things, he was number 7 in our rotation. So, in other words, Doc Rivers viewed Bobby Portis, you're the first off the bench. A.J., you're next. And you could kind of get the sense that's where it was headed in the offseason with some of the things that Doc and John Horst had to say about him, and frankly, the way that he played down the second half of last season. But I think that's partially where it is with A.J. Johnson. If it would have been one thing, because I agree with all the tools and the athletic ability that we've seen from him. Like, we talked about it on some of the game broadcasts, too, when you watched, granted, preseason games. But when you watch preseason games, you could see this guy just plays at a different speed than it seems like anybody else on the floor not named Jackson for the Bucks or Giannis plays at. Like, it is, holy cow. He's just got twitch, and he's so quick, and he can get to his spots. He does need to bulk up. It's one of the big things that Walker Kessler had to learn after his first year in the league. He does need to add to his frame, but it would have been one thing. Like, you really only see this where it's a guy that's young, that talented, if you're a very high lottery pick, or if it's just unassailable. AJ came out in the preseason, he shot 50% on threes, and he was taking 4 threes a game, and he was averaging, 19 points in 21 minutes of game action. Like, holy cow, he's got the skills, and we're seeing the numbers line up, and that wasn't what you saw. You saw a lot of good flashes. The numbers weren't there. He had a really bad shooting performance, and that's fine. He's young. He's going to continue to work on his game, but I think that's really the only scenario where you would say, okay, he's definitely playing right now this year.
Yeah, and I think barring an injury, you're probably not going to see him up here.
I think you'll see him sporadically. Like when you get in, not right now because of the spot they're in partially.
Well, yeah.
But when you get to the, hey, we got 5
middle
games.
Of the year, yeah.
We got 5 games in 7 days. Or, you don't want it to happen, or if there's an injury in the backcourt of, all right, let's see what this guy can do.
Quick question for you, basically yes or no. Do you think had he shot better in the Summer League preseason that it would have?
No, I don't.
No?
Just because of the vets that were already in front of him.
Yeah,
in that spot.
When you grab the DeLon Wright, especially on that contract.
We will wrap up the show and get you set for tomorrow night in New York, Bucks and the Knicks. Why it could be a very important game. We'll get into it after this on Bucks Talk.
Heart disease won't stop us. Diabetes, allergies, cancer. Nothing will keep the Freighter and the Medical College of Wisconsin Health Network from pushing Wisconsin ahead. We're constantly raising the bar for medical excellence and providing more ways to receive it, so you have it for all your health needs, big and small. Let's push ahead, and we'll make life here as great as it can be. Visit Freighter.com to find out how.
Visit family-owned Ken Michaels Furniture and our in-store design centers where you'll still find beautiful, luxurious, heirloom-quality American-made furniture. Right now, save 30 to 35% store-wide and take advantage of our complimentary design services. Whether you're moving, renovating, or updating, our designers will help your vision become a reality. Visit Ken Michaels Furniture in Brookfield on Capitol Drive and in Greenfield on Highway 100 to save 30 to 35% store-wide today. Sleep better and save more with mattresses from Milwaukee Mattress and Ken Michaels Furniture. Handcrafted in our Milwaukee factory, our mattresses utilize natural materials like cotton cushioning, which dissipates body heat, Joma wool quilts for warm wintry nights and cool summer evenings, and natural latex providing superior conformability and pressure relief for aching joints. Stop in today at any Ken Michaels Furniture store and save up to 50% compared to national brands.
Who doesn't need a seasonal wardrobe update? But who has the cash to always keep their wardrobe updated? Ladies, that's why you shop St. Vincent de Paul. Our women's clothing is always a highlight of our stores, and thrift store prices keep the costs low. It allows you to experiment and also find a hidden gem. St. Vincent de Paul thrift stores on Highway 100 in Layton and Greenfield, 23rd in Lincoln, and 76th and Bradley Road in Milwaukee.
You're gonna love it, St. Vincent de Paul.
Ready to tackle your home improvement project this fall? Exterior Pros and Baths is here to help you score big with quality home exterior and shower upgrades. As a 5-time President's Club Award winner, Exterior Pros is not playing around. With flexible financing, it's never been easier to invest in your home without breaking the bank. Get started today and save $2,000. Visit extpros.com or call 262-800-4274. That's 262-800-4274. Trust the pros and kick off your home transformation today. day.
The round ball repartee returns. This is Bucks Talk.
Well, it's not a win streak. You need 3 for a streak. But you can piece together 2 straight wins. I'd love to see a win streak because it means wins over the Knicks and the Celtics. But it's a big one tomorrow to go to New York to take on a team that you may well be right around the same spot in the playoff seeding with, and to see what can you carry over. Like we talked about that a lot last week of piece together consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Like as Mike McCarthy, I would assume another one of your guys, used to say.
Why do you say that? Just because we look alike?
As Mike McCarthy used to say, stack successes.
Yeah, he's right.
Like that's
very
what you're
highly
for.
successful coach.
That's what.
You haven't heard.
That's what you're looking for here, for the Bucks to continue to stack these successes, and if you can do that tomorrow against the Knicks, as we said, look, all of a sudden you're 3-6. I get it; it's not ideal. You'd love for those to be flipped, but you're 3-6, and the Knicks would be 3-5. And you look around and you see a lot of teams at 4-4 and 3-5, and
Philly,
all the
1-6,
1-6. Joel Embiid conveniently ready to come back as soon as the suspension was handed out. And now they lose Tyrese Maxey for at least 2 weeks. So, yeah, it's not as bad as it seems. It's never as good as it seems. It's never as bad as it seems for anything, including the Bucks so far this season. So tomorrow against the Knicks, we talked about the depth issues for the Knicks. I think the big thing to look for is, not only minutes. As Doc was quick to point out, Giannis didn't play a whole lot tonight. I think it was 29 minutes. Dame did. So what that means, how you're going to use some of these guys, but the groupings and the lineups, like still trying to find those right bench units and what is really optimized, what works the most. But I'll leave you with this too, Brandon. I think one of the big things that they're really just searching for is they have 3 bigs on this roster with Brook, Giannis, and Bobby Portis. They know one grouping of that works very, very well. Brook and Giannis together. In those minutes so far this season, and granted it's not a ton, the Bucks have a +4 net rating. It's not great. It's still, for a team that's 2-6, it's pretty good to have those 2 guys on the floor together. The offense has been pretty good. The defense has been good enough, right? It's been at a 114 defensive rating, which I haven't looked at where the Bucks are season to date, but it was well beyond that up until these last 2 games. So that grouping still works. I think you do have to be diligent about picking the spots. I mean, obviously that's your starting group, but finding the right matchups for Brook Lopez, that has not been an issue. And by the numbers last year, that was one of their best, with the starting 5 of Brook and Giannis and Chris Middleton and then Malik Beasley and Dame Lillard. That was one of the best 5-man groups in all of the NBA. It's still been pretty good with those 2 on the floor. But whenever you deviate from that, that's where the Bucks are still searching for what's the right mix here. And ultimately, I mean, do we have to just move to, if it's not Giannis and Brook, it can really only be one of those guys on the floor at the same time? Because when it's been Brook and Bobby so far this season, it's a -11 net rating. It's a defense that's been pretty bad. It's an offense that's been even worse.
No, that passes the eye test, yeah.
A 110 offensive rating, a 121 defensive rating. But when it has been Bobby and Giannis, it is even worse than that. A -28 net rating in nearly 200 possessions so far this season. So we have seen an equal amount, essentially, of Giannis and Bobby versus Brook and Bobby. The Giannis and Bobby group just has not worked. A -28 net rating so far, 96.5 offensive rating, which in this day and age of offense, where every single year the best offense in the league is the best in league history, like anything less than 110 is bad.
Yeah.
And it's a 96.5 and a defensive rating near 125. I think part of that is just Bobby's not a rim protector, and Giannis is technically the 4 in those lineups, so a lot of times Giannis ends up on the perimeter, that he's out of position, not in terms of like his actual responsibility, but you're able to pull him away from things, and Bobby isn't going to be a rim protector. So that group just hasn't worked so far, whether that means finding the right pieces to put around them Or do we just need to, as Doc Rivers has hinted many times this season, I would love to play small. Like he keeps giving you the answer to the quiz, saying, hey, when Chris is healthy, we're going to start to play small a lot more. I think given that and those numbers that we just poured over, I think you're moving to we can play two of these guys together for a couple of possessions or a couple of stretches during a game when it makes sense. If we're going against a team like the Cavs or something like that, or a Joel Embiid-led team where you need more size to combat that. For the rest of them, we're going to play one of these guys, and we're going to play Chris or Taurean Prince at the 4, and we're going to play small.
To go back to your point about the Knicks, about tomorrow, I'm gonna simplify it for myself, and I mentioned it when they lost to the Cavs on Monday. I honestly, I'm curious to see how they respond. Obviously, it's a back-to-back, and they're probably getting ready to get on the plane and head to New York as you and I wrap this up. I'm curious to see how they just respond after a win. I think this team just needed to see, for one night, Justin, just something to go right.
Yeah.
It felt like a lot of things went right in those Cavs losses, but then everything else went more right for the Cavs in those losses. So I think this is a team that it's not a young team. It's an older team. It's a veteran team. There's champions on this team. They don't need to know what it's like to win. But as a new team, as a new unit and a new year, and you started off losing 6 out of 7 games and 6 in a row, I think tonight was a great night for them for many reasons. But for one, they just needed to see something go their way and that final buzzard. And I think they're going to carry that over tomorrow in New York. And I'm curious and confident at the same time to see how they respond. I think they'll respond. I think it'll be a great matchup in New York.
My hope is we point to the second half of this game and say that's when it started to feel like it came together for this group. And they started to figure out, like, part of it is, as you meant, you got to see that win. I think for Gary Trent Jr., too, the first shot that he made tonight, you're like, all right, you just need to see Gary hit his first shot.
You can do it.
Like he needs – sometimes, and Doc has talked about this, too, like, look, don't take shooting advice from me. I was terrible at it. But you just need to see the ball go through the net, and that can change so many things. So I think that was crucial, and we didn't get to see more of him because of the back spasms. But the larger picture, you lost 6 in a row. You felt like you played pretty well in most of at least 3 of those games. And that was against good competition, too. And you started to see the opponents hitting a lot of threes. And granted, it wasn't just, it was luck and it was outlier performances. There were some issues with the Bucks defensively, but it just started to pile up and it felt like quicksand. And you just needed to, like, how do we get out of this? Okay, we won. Great. Now we can do this again. So that's what you hope and that's what you look for. And again, the fact that Doc has continually pointed out his confidence that what I see some of the things we work on, some of the film that we watch, I see the process that I really like, and I do confidently feel like we are going to go on a run here, and I think it's going to happen relatively soon. The hope is you look at the second half tonight, and you say, that's where it was. That's what it was. That's what was the turning point for this team, at least for the early portion of the season. We'll find out tomorrow night, 6:30 tip in New York. 6 o'clock is when our pregame coverage begins on WTMJ. And as always, be sure to stick around after the game for Bucks Talk. Brandon and I will talk to you then.